Hello and welcome to another FormStack product demo. Today we're going to be working with our native Salesforce app, our Webmerge document generation product, and the newest to our product lineup, our InsureSign electronic signature product. So the use case that we're going to be working with today is an organization, in this case the Fishers Youth Soccer, is looking to put on an event, and they want to use FormStack's form to collect registration data. And there's two components that need to happen here, one on the front side and one on the back side. The front side is once the information is gathered from the form, it needs to send out an email to the registrant that has a personalized email, but then it has a document attached that has all the registration email and maybe some extra about the league itself that they're signed up for. And then the second email that gets generated is actually going to have a waiver form attached to it, and that's where our InsureSign product comes into play. That waiver form will have a signature field on there and be dated. That will also be personalized, and that way they can store for their records for legal use. So now then, the second piece that we have on the backside, so the organization putting on the event, what they want to have happen when all that information is submitted is they need a registration to be created within the event that they have. And then within that registration, they want to have two contacts created. One, a primary contact, which will be the child, also the player, of the league, and they want a secondary contact, which is related to that primary, which will be the parent information. They can use that for future reference for maybe next year's league, and it's also going to have those documents kick back into the Salesforce record. So we'll have a full registration with multiple contacts and those documents generated back. So let's take a look as to how this whole process should appear, and then we'll kind of start from the beginning, and we'll really focus heavy on the Webmerge document generation and the InsureSign document from start to finish. So here we have a website that I just quickly created as a landing page, Fishers Youth Soccer, and just to kind of show what embedded form is and what it looks like. So we have all the information on this form, the child information, we have all the parent info, the extra information that we've decided to put on our form. And when we click on send, what should then happen after we get our little pop-up notice here is, again, we should have two emails pushed over to our registrant. So what we'll do is we'll head on over to our inbox and we'll do a little refresh, and we'll have those emails show up here. And then, there we go. So we have the first email that's popped in. So thank you for registering. When we click on it, there we go, the personalized email with both the parent name and the child name. When we click on the document, it has all that information that they had entered in the form, as well as some bonus information. Awesome. That all looks good. Let's go back. We now have that second email that is generated, the please sign the Fishers Youth Soccer waiver form. So when we click on this one, it will have just one button to push, and when you do, it will take us out to the InsureSign website right into that waiver document. Now that document has also been personalized, so it has the names in there, and as we scroll through the document and get to the bottom, we have our click to sign button there, as well as the date already added. So we'll go ahead and sign our document, applying our name, and then we'll do a sign. Now, a neat feature with InsureSign is that once they've confirmed and signed and they're taken here, I have a personalized message to them for thanking them for registering. But I also have an ability that when they're done to kick them to a particular URL. So for this demo case, I actually have it sent right back to the Fishers Youth Soccer webpage, but I have it sent to the contact tab because I figure if they've already submitted their waiver form and their registration, maybe they have some additional questions, and if they do, well, we could just expedite the process, take them right to the contact page. But again, you can have them kicked to wherever you want. So now we should also have one final email that comes in, which we do. Shows that the document's been signed. I scroll down. Let's take a little look. And at the bottom, there we go. My signature's on there. It's dated. Excellent. Now I can keep that for my records. Now, on the back end within Salesforce, it's the second part of what we were trying to accomplish. We have our event here, the Fishers Summer Youth Soccer League. When we click on that, I'm going to go ahead and do a little refresh here. Okay. And we go into details. We see absolutely we have one registered attendee. Excellent. Let's maybe get some details on there. There we go. We have that registration. Okay, and it looks like the name on the badge, Kieran. Okay, so let's click on the registration, and it has all the information. Perfect. And then now there's our primary contact, which is the child, the player. And then if I click on his name, we should have, under notes and attachments, we have the two different documents that we generated. We have that Fisher's Youth Soccer registration form in PDF form, and then we also have the waiver form in PDF. Now, a key thing to note here is that both of these documents will be the documents with the pre-filled information. So the customized information, all the information they entered from the form, as well as the names, and the addresses. So, but it will not have the signature. So this is pre-signature. It's a pre-signature form of the waiver form. It's not post-signature. At its current state, we don't have that ability to kick that back into the record for Salesforce, but that is something that we're looking to do going forward. So later iterations of our InsureSign integration should have the ability of having a post-signed document kick back into the records. But I just want to make sure that we are clear for expectation when you see these documents show up. So the other piece that we wanted to do is underneath that primary contact is we wanted to have a related contact, which was the parent. So when we go into the details and we scroll down, we actually have that parent contact. Great, so they are related. So we've created the registration. We have the documents associated with the primary contact, and we've created the primary contact and a secondary contact that is related. That all goes back to that event that we've created on there. So let's kind of roll through how did we create this whole setup, and we'll kind of go from start to finish here. So the first thing we want to do is obviously we want to create our form. So the best thing to do is to make sure that you go into your apps under Salesforce. Make sure you get your form stack and your Webmerge applications. If you don't have them, go ahead and visit the App Exchange, download them, and either sign in. And if you haven't, you can actually do a free trial, test it out, or sign up. And then once you have them with launch in, and we're just going to kind of briefly touch this form only because really the keys that I really want to touch on here are really about the Webmerge and the InsureSign, but just to kind of show how on the back end of Salesforce, how we got all that information to trigger in is on our registration form. Remember, since the Salesforce app through FormStack is native to Salesforce, it will pull all information that you have set up within your org, your Salesforce org, under your objects and fields. So all standard and all custom objects and fields can be used based on how you have your form set up. So I have mine set up with the primary object of contact with two others rolling for event registration and parent contact. And because of that, it gives me these particular drop downs for fields to drag and drop into my form. And because I'm using the registration, that actually, when you look at our form here, has the event tied to it because, well, to have an event registration, it has to be tied to an event. This allows me to instantly tie it to that Fisher Summer Youth Soccer League event. So now everything that goes in here is going to be tied to that record, which is really nice. So once you have our form created, you can then publish it, and you can take the embed code and you can do like I did and put it back on your website. So that way it looks really nice, which then it will auto adopt the CSS from your website. So it looks good, fits in there. But really, let's take a look now as how to generate those documents and how to kind of get them pre-filled where it has that dynamic fill of the customer's information, as well as getting that signature on there. So we go into our Webmerge account here. Under Salesforce, we launch that application, and we want to go to our documents. So you can either create a new document, and you can do that one of two ways. You can either create the document directly in here through Webmerge, or if you have your own that you've already made in Word, or you can actually import that directly in. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my waiver form. I'm not going to worry as much about the registration form because that's really straightforward. That's just mapping the fields and has just the information that basically came directly from our form and just printed out. So what I really want to focus on here is our waiver form. So when I open that up, there's a few things that we want to look at. Number one, we're going to go to our manage file, and I want to kind of show you some merge field setup within this document. So we open it up. If you notice right off the bat, we have some coding on here, and these merge fields are set up so that they match up with the way it is in Salesforce, since we are using Salesforce app. And there's something to be noted. You just want to make sure that the way that it is, so this is our parent name, and that's our child first name and last name. We just want to make sure that it's congruent across the way that we write it on the document, the way that we're going to do it in our mappings, and the way that we have it set for our delivery. And I'll show you all three of those. So for this sake, we have the contact name, which is going to be contact.name, which is the way I have it set up in Salesforce. Child first name, child last name, which is how I have it set up as well. And then at the bottom here, it looks blank, but I actually have a signature field and the date sign field. So if we look, I have it actually hidden here because it's written in white, because since it is coding to trigger that particular signature field, and also on the date. I just did it in white text so that way it doesn't show up on the actual printed document or on the actual document. Now, there's three big things to note when it comes to InsureSign and what you can do on a document. Here's what's really neat. So as we look through this waiver form, we have 5 addendums, 5 main things we're looking at here. So you have the ability of, number one, is you need to know what the type of thing that we're needing to put on the document. So whether it's the signature, or we want to do a checkbox, or we need to have an initial, or we need to have a date, or we need to do a text box. So for instance, after each one of these little addendums here, I could say, you know what, I want to do an initial, and I need them to go ahead and click on each one of those and sign an initial. And then at the bottom, for their full signature, I need the signature on there, and then I need the date. So that's the number one piece that you need. Number two is if it's required or not. So when we go back and we look at this particular coding, you notice I have SIG, so that's the type that I'm dealing with. Is it required? Yes, I absolutely need this required, but you may not need it required. And then the third part is which signer. So right now it's signer 1. But if you had multiple signers on this, so you needed 2 parents, or if you're just sending out a document with a signature and you had multiple parties that needed to sign, you could say SIG required signer 1 and then SIG required signer 2. And it's kind of the same down here for the date. So date, I could say not required, but just for this sake, I did date required for signer 1. And it will automatically pull the date of when that document is posted. So again, you have 3 things. What type are we dealing with? So are we dealing with the signature, checkbox, initial, date, text? Number 2, is it required or not required? And then number 3, which one of the signers? So once we add that type of verbiage in here in the code, now it knows how to trigger the proper things onto the document. So once we have our document done, let's just go ahead and exit out of here. And the next thing we want to look at within here is how we're going to deliver this document. And that delivery, because now we've set up our document with all the proper InsureSign coding so that it understands where to put it, we want to go ahead and make sure that InsureSign is our actual delivery option. So you can go on New Delivery, and then once in there, we actually now have it up at the top with email and our own product stash. So when you click on InsureSign, it's going to have you either sign into your account or to go set up a free trial or sign up for it. Since I already have it logged in, I'm just going to go to edit, and here we go. It makes this really simple. You go into subject. Okay, we have that done. Sender, since I'm logged into my account, it knows based on the username that, well, I'm the sender, but you can change that. And then on the signee, so because on that document, this is where we're talking about that we need to make sure everything is congruent. So within the document, I needed that coding, the merge fields to be the same in my document and now in my delivery. So when I drop down my merge field, well, yeah, I'm going to deal with contact name because I'm wanting to send this to the parent. I'm not sending it to the child. So contact name. And how am I delivering? I'm sending it to their email. Again, it's another merge drop down field. So once I add there, I could say save delivery. I'm good to go. And now you actually have that delivery set up. So the final piece that you need to do within your Webmerge here is we need to be able to map that document. So we go into Webmerge mappings up here at the top, and we click on our waiver form. This will have a couple things which are important. The mapping, for sure, which as we go through, I'll show you. But there's also going to be this mapping ID we're going to need, which is going to trigger off the entire process within Salesforce. So our mapping name it whatever you want. I have it as waiver form. What object are we dealing with in Salesforce? Well, I am dealing with the contact object. That is the primary object that I had for my form. I want to keep that congruent. Okay, so I have contact. Dealing with the document, it's going to ask you which document. Well, it's the one that we just created. So our waiver form, excellent. As we go down, we have some field mappings. It wants to map those Webmerge fields that we have created within our document. Okay, and then it needs to be able to map it to the Salesforce field. So my child's first name, and then we click in here. What's funny is you'll actually have an ability here. As I type, it actually gives every single available related field that could be for Salesforce. But I know that what I'm dealing with is the last name. There we go. So I can just click on last name. But it's the same for all these. Do email, last name, and then for parent contact, that's the custom object that I created. And so I need to pull the full object of that for this field. So once you have these all mapped together, you want to go ahead and click Save. And then the final piece that we want to do. So we already have our form is already set up. It's all tied together with all of our objects, our custom objects and fields, and our standard objects and fields. We now have created a document, and we've added the proper coding so that it has some really nice dynamic fill. So it's personalized for the customer. We now have added our InsureSign coding as well, so we know that we have the signature, or we have our initials, or we have our date, whatever we've decided. We've made the decision whether or not it's required, and then we also have which signer we need to have on there. And now we've also went ahead and made sure that we mapped it. So the final thing that we need to do is we need to go into your process builder in Salesforce and just go ahead and create out a process. If you've ever used a process builder, no different. I'm just using event registration, that when I create a new registration, I just need to trigger a couple immediate actions. And one of those is I wanted to create that registration document, and I also needed to send the waiver form. Now, how we do that is, since we're using Webmerge to send these documents, we want to do an Apex call. And you can name it whatever you want. For me, I did waiver form. It makes sense. Again, congruence, being congruent is really, really helpful here. Keep it all the same so you don't get confused. So waiver form. And then for Apex class, you can actually just start typing generate, and you'll see generate document pops in. That's the class that we're dealing with. And as soon as you're done, there's going to be two variables that you need to fill out. One is your Webmerge mapping ID, and then the other one is your Salesforce record ID. Now, when we were just in the mapping portion of our Webmerge, I had said there was two important pieces. There was the mapping, and then there was also that little value at the top. So Webmerge mapping ID. If we go right back into our mapping, at the very top, we have our mapping ID. So we see this ending in QAB. We go back into our process builder. Yep. If I added that in, that's perfect. And then for our Salesforce record ID, we have a field reference. And since I'm dealing with event registration, it's going to be event registration and to the contact object, which is my primary object that I'm dealing with. So once this is set, you just activate it. Now the entire process is done. It knows, Salesforce knows that as soon as that form is submitted, it is going to trigger a new registration. And this process builder is saying is that as soon as there's a registration that shows up in Salesforce, these are the actions, immediate actions that need to take place. I need to be able to send out these two documents. And we know that we're sending them out via the way that we've set up in Webmerge. We know that we're going to have it sent with InsureSign on our waiver form. And I've also set it up as email for just the regular registration form. So we have all of those covered. The last thing I kind of wanted to show on there, which is pretty nice, is that once you have your InsureSign document put in, you can actually go into your account. And we'll do a quick refresh here because since we just did I'll go ahead and log in. Okay. There we go. I'll do it for just today. And we should have our document show up. There we go. Fisher's Youth Soccer Waiver Form. Who's the participant? Christopher Ball. Excellent. And even when you hover over it, shows you the email that it came from. When was it created? The status it's signed. You have some actions here You can actually download it, archive it, and you can do some different searches by date range. You can search by the document name or the participant, whatever you want. But now it's inside your InsureSign account as well, so for your own records.